You are listening to WVOX 1460 AM in New Rochelle, and my name is Tom Sullivan. My guest is an amazing woman. Sue Cadwell has been a community organizer, a political activist, a chef, a caterer, a house cleaning entrepreneur. She's also a chiglet, a fig Newton, and a heck of a nice person. An old friend of mine. Welcome, Sue Cadwell. How are you?
Tom, I am honored to be here.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor for me to have you here. Now, we've known each other for an awfully long time.
It's humorous how long it is at this point, Tom. Yes.
1980, I believe it was, and the Connecticut Citizen Action Group.
Yes.
You were my boss. You were the supervisor of that operation, and it was an amazing thing. You were, as I recall, only 20 years old at the time.
I was.
And how did you get to be such an important person at such a young age?
Well, I don't know how important I was, but I felt like I wanted to do something important. And, you know, back in the day of newspaper ads, and that's how you found a job, I made a decision not to go to college to kind of see where I wanted to go. And I thought I wanted to work with plants. And I did a year at a nursery in Westport, Connecticut, and that was fabulous, except I learned how to grow plants, and then I wanted to do something more important. And
although plants are important.
Plants are important. I
way.
actually came
Yes.
full circle because I grew and I grow food for myself and plants, and I loved the experience, but it wasn't my life's aspiration. And then CCAG had an ad, and little did I know it was going door to door, but it was, I wouldn't trade the experience for the world because I had a blast.
So you were 19 when you started at CCAG, is that about?
I think I was,
Okay.
yeah.
And you quickly, your talents were quickly recognized, and they made you a supervisor, which is a little amazing given your youth and the fact that, as I recall, having worked there myself, you know, most of the people there had gone to college. We had some lawyers there and stuff like that, and there were you, high school graduate. And obviously there was something very special about you that was recognized.
Well, I am humbled by your kind words, but it was very interesting because in retrospect, little did I know that Bill Bloss, my boss in Norwalk, Connecticut at the time, he was probably grooming me within 2 months of me being on the scene for his job. Very unbeknownst to me.
As I recall, he was he was a nice man, but he was a very sort of A-type personality.
And I think to this day, Bill Bloss has gone on to be a lawyer. And not that we've stayed in contact heavily, but he has turned out to be quite an A-type still to this day, shall we say.
I recall him being, you know, a nice man, but a somewhat intimidating, powerful, very confident, certainly, kind of person. I was intimidated by him, but then again, I'm intimidated by everybody. So,
well, I see what you're saying. I think Bill seemed to come off quite serious.
Yes.
But I think as I often approach things with a little lightheartedness and sense of humor, I kind of needled him a little bit and he needled me, and that was kind of a foundation for our being able to work well together, because we, you know, you saw the environment with kids coming in, and of course some of them older than me, and
most of them older.
Yes, and just, you know, getting people organized to go door to door and teaching them what to say. And then we were going into some very affluent areas of, you know, Greenwich and Norwalk and New Canaan with our, you know, kind of alternative hippie Ralph Nader, you know, shtick. And so we really needed to teach everybody how to do their job professionally. And so there was a lot of moving parts, and it was a blast.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about what exactly CCAG is, so the people will know we're talking about. That stands for Connecticut Citizen Action Group. And I know certainly Ralph Nader had a lot to do with it.
He was one of the founders.
Then you had people like Toby Moffett, and talk a little bit about that organization's beginnings.
So Toby and Ralph, I don't remember the exact year they started, but I think the organization was probably started mid-70s. And it was really to be a voice for the the consumer in the state.
Right.
So a lot of our focus was on environmental issues. CCAG was responsible for getting the bottle bill passed.
I recall that.
Which, was kind of a groundbreaking piece of legislation, given that, now every state has a bottle bill. We also worked heavily on utility rights and utility rates, and held hearings to protect the consumer from price gouging of the major utilities. And they were very consumer environmentally focused. And then we had satellite offices. In addition to the canvassing offices, they had community organizing offices where we would go into inner city areas and work on particularly local issues that were affecting.
One thing I remember at the time was toxic waste and toxic dumping. I do recall that was something we talked about. Yes.
Which, I'm not sure what the outcome of our petitions were, but if nothing else, I think it was valuable, regardless of whether we won or lost. It was about bringing the issue to the table to the consumers, to kind of, I feel like it was very valuable to be one-on-one at somebody's door, bringing awareness and bringing education. I feel that was more valuable than, they wouldn't tell me that it was more valuable than raising dollars, because of course raising dollars to keep the organization afloat and to do the causes was most important. But I feel like a lot of people appreciated having dialogue and having the youth and the enthusiasm of youth, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, willing to step on somebody's door, knock on with a speech, and just dialogue. And it was I think it was a very valuable service.
I think it was too, and I seem to remember certain names I'm thinking about. I mentioned Toby Moffett, there was Miles Rappaport. I think he was one of the founding fathers.
Yes, he was,
as I believe.
And Toby went on to run for U.S. Senate.
He was a congressman.
He was actually a 6th District congressman, which the 6th District no longer exists.
Okay.
So, of Connecticut. So, and he held that office for a few terms.
And I remember reading a piece about you. You worked, I believe, on his Senate campaign. I think seems like to me like you were a fairly instrumental person in that run that he made. So,
what I did is I actually set up a canvas, a door-to-door canvas, just like CCAG. I used the CCAG model, and we ended up having 85 canvassers work for Toby out of 4 offices in Connecticut, and I believe we knocked on, I think our 85 canvassers knocked on 150 doors. We spoke to 150,000 people, and we raised $30,000.
That's pretty impressive. It really is.
We were the first politically paid canvass for a candidate in the country.
Okay.
There had never been canvassers who were paid for a political canvass.
That was in 82, I believe. I think that was 1982 or 84 or something like that.
I think it might have been 84.
Okay.
No, it was 82.
All right. So, because I do remember reading about that and about your involvement in that. And you and I worked together at Stratford. They had an office in Stratford where we worked together.
For Connecticut Citizen Action
for CCAG,
Yep.
And it was a kind of an amazing experience, as I recall, because I'm a New Yorker, actually. I born and raised in New York City, and I had just recently moved to Connecticut at the time. And who are these people?
We're a different sort of lot than the New York group.
Yes, absolutely. And it was also, I remember going out in the winter and it was freezing cold, and people were like, you're going to freeze yourself to death, because it is a little bit colder in Connecticut than New York. And I didn't know about earmuffs and things like that, and layering, which is kind of important in the winter. And
the winter crew was a hardy lot, because it was easy to get kids to do it in the summer. It was a lot of college jobs for kids. So we had probably, most offices had 25 to 35 canvassers in the summer. And then in the winter, it was, if we had 5 going out, we were pretty happy in January, you know.
Okay.
So-
Well, I was one of that hardy band.
Yes, you
and, my good friends Charlie Maloney and Cindy Ritzinger, who I'm still in touch with, and some of these.
That's amazing.
And I remember Andrea Phibb was quite a character, and some of these other. And Andrea Shear.
Andrea Shear.
Andrea Shear and Laura Phibb. That's
Oh
I'm,
my
I'm
gosh.
getting I'm getting the names
Laura
confused.
Phibb.
Yeah.
You're good, Tom.
Yeah, Laura was. I remember Laura was a very nice person, very sort of earth mother, hippie-ish kind of. I remember sort of her howling at the moon while we waited for a car to pick us up after a night of canvassing. And,
if it was in the middle of the winter, she could do whatever she wants. Howl at the moon.
And Andrea Shear was our chauffeur, as I recall, also a very active canvasser herself. And
Andrea and I just actually are reconnecting now after. I really haven't stayed. We were very, very good friends for a long time, and then we just, as friendships separate.
that's what happens, yes.
And we just actually, I wrote her a message this morning on Facebook.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Since I'm up here to visit, we're going to see if we can connect.
Yes, very, very good. And her sister Tracy also worked, as I recall,
Yes, she did.
for CCAG. So anyhow, you were there, and at some point you obviously moved along to something else. What happened to you?
So, it's one of those jobs that I wasn't drawn to do for more than a year. I was 22. Then I went on to the political scene. Like I said, from CCAG to Toby Moffett. I worked briefly under the auspices of Bill Curry, who also ran for governor in Connecticut.
Okay.
And ran for a few political offices. And Bill recruited me to go work for an organization in Washington called Freeze Voter 84. And that was it was a great vision, as many of organizations, I believe it was grossly underfunded. And the mission was really to work against nuclear power plants.
Right.
And work on safe alternatives and alternative energy as a strategy. And unfortunately, being underfunded, we couldn't follow through on the mission.
So you were down in D.C. for a while.
I was in D.C. for a little bit,
Right.
and then I decided that I didn't like what I was seeing in terms of the lifestyle of people in political activism. Everybody was stressed out. Everybody was kind of gray and didn't see the light of day, and smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee.
Right.
And I started to be aware of what I really wanted as a lifestyle, and I kind of got in touch with the fact that I was kind of a bit of a health nut.
Okay.
With that said, being young and having an entrepreneurial spirit, I thought I would just kind of relax and chill when I came back from DC and make a little money cleaning houses. And before I knew it, I was working full time as a cleaning person, and I hired a couple of high school kids. And fast forward, I ended up owning my cleaning business for 5 years and doing a business plan and getting a bank loan, and did that and really enjoyed being an entrepreneur. And that's what really drove me, except that there was no social redeeming value.
Right.
And
Although there's something to be said for clean houses.
well, yes, we were very much appreciated. And as I feel most of life is about is building relationships. I have still, one of my dearest friends has worked. She was my third employee ever.
Okay.
And she was just here from California this weekend. And it really, to me, business and the world, and now more than ever, given what's going on right now with a lot of conditions around the planet, building relationships is really where it's at. So I don't regret any of my cleaning service, but I will say that one day I just kind of hit a wall and said, OMG, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Sure. To me, one of the things that strikes me about you is you seem to have a tremendous amount of confidence and a willingness and bravery and willingness to do things that might scare other people. Things like starting your own business, getting loans, and I always worry about the money side of things and how am I going to do this. And you just seem to be somebody who charges right ahead, and you obviously have a lot of confidence and courage. And where does that come from, do you think?
I giggle, Tom, because I'm human, and I feel like I think somewhere along the way, I probably from my mom was given the gift of how precious life is. I think that's the foundation. And we only go around once. And I have a lot of energy, and I feel like the human condition is one of, is not rooted in confidence, because I feel like we're all equal. I'm no more confident or than the next person. We all have our inner demons, our inner struggles,
Sure.
our inner journeys, really deep inside our souls that we have to wrestle with. And I've had very dark days.
Okay.
And yet somehow I think because of what I just said about my mother instilling the preciousness of life, not by anything she said, but her unconditional love for me, because we had a wacky relationship. She raised me single-handedly, and yet she was there for me. She didn't have a lot of resources. My dad just kind of came and went when he felt like it, but I felt her devotion. And I slept we had a 1-bedroom apartment. We slept in twin beds in the same bedroom.
Right.
That was my upbringing. I did have my grandmother's house where I had my own room. So I had the gift of 2 homes, but I really lived, in a 1-bedroom house with my mom. And I remember saying at her funeral, I said, very few people get to know the intimacy that I had with my mom. Because it's like now, when you see the lifestyle of, especially in this area where children all have their own bedrooms and their own bathrooms, and there's this level of separateness. And, I had the opposite. I had the level of intimacy with my mother that probably not many children are given, to see.
Some days I look at my children, because my kids are grown now, but sometimes when we're all together, like we'll be having dinner, and I look and they're all looking down. They're looking at these phones, that, seem to be glued to young people's hands now. And all these devices, and
How do you feel about that?
Not happy, actually.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to say, put those things away, and let's talk to each other. And because I think that's a real problem now for a lot of people.
I think it's rampant, and we've gone unconscious about it. We've
Yes.
accepted it. We've accepted that. And, we're all guilty of it. So there's nobody really, there's very few people that are really true Luddites that are off the grid and
Sure.
are in the cabins like Thoreau. There's not too many people doing that. Even those who do that have to connect somehow for reasons that they have.
Well, it's become a necessity in many ways. Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
But on the other hand, one thing that I think is missing is some sort of structure. And I actually try to put structure in my life. Like, I have to catch myself and say, put the phone down and go. Like, how much time do I really need to be spending with this when today is a beautiful day? And
Sure, you could take a walk and talk to people.
Yes.
It used to be if you walked down the street and you saw somebody talking to himself, you knew he was crazy. Now he's talking on the phone to somebody, and it's amazing how that has gone.
I personally have to balance that tech life out with being outside and with people. I am very aware of that now more than ever, because I don't feel good. I don't feel good when I know that I've spent 4 hours. Well, I don't typically do this, but if I've spent, a couple of hours on a beautiful day outside, inside on the computer, I know that I have to balance that out with outside, or I get cranky and
Right.
angry. And I think that's a lot of what we're experiencing. There's, that we need human connection, and it's kind of sad to watch. You know, when you're in a restaurant and you know there's everybody's on their phones and they're sitting at a table breaking bread. You know, it's
yes, you see people like that, and they're not. You know, you're in a restaurant, you're with somebody, a friend, family member, whatever, and you're looking at your phone. It's like, what are we doing? You know, and
I have a rule in my house. There's no phones on my table.
Right.
There's no phones during the meal time. I mean, it's just kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know,
we've tried to stress that too, but it's hard because this stuff is very addictive, and it's become part of the culture for so many young people, particularly, but to a lesser extent for all of us. And you get caught up in it. It's an amazing thing.
Well, and I was sad to learn that it's actually there are formulas to make us addicted, and that's really concerning. You know,
it affects your brain.
Have you seen? There was a piece on 60 Minutes. A gentleman came out who worked behind the scenes in Apple, and was talking about the formulas where it's a formula because of course
they hook you deliberately
on
in some
purpose
cases.
with and that kind of sent a chill through my body.
Right.
You know,
yes.
it's kind of a little Big Brother-ish for my liking.
No, it's something you do have to, and you obviously are very reflective and self-aware, and you think about these things. A lot of people don't, because it operates on such an unconscious level for a lot of people who are not, really aware of that, and that is a very dangerous thing. Now, so you've done all these entrepreneurial things, and the cleaning service, and you cook, and you started a catering business at one point. Is that correct?
I went to cooking school in New York City, the Natural Gourmet Cookery School, which at the time was the only Whole Foods cooking program anywhere, in 1995. And Health in a Hurry was born. And Health in a Hurry was an organic, vegetarian catering service and to-go food establishment in Fairfield, Connecticut for 17 years is really how long Health in a Hurry was on the map.
Okay.
In Fairfield.
And you started that, what year was that?
I got out of cooking school in 97 and pretty much hit the ground running. I did a delivery business to homes. I did a 8-item menu, and people could decide on pints and quarts, and I delivered.
Okay.
I did a sandwich delivery business to health food stores. I did catering.
Now, you obviously had people working for you and with you, and how did that grow?
I did it on my own, at the beginning. The food business, I discourage anybody from going into the food business whenever possible, because you really have to have kind of a screw loose and be so high energy and tap into parts of yourself. It's a very intense business, and anybody I talk to in the business concurs. It's a club, because there's so many aspects to it, and you really it's an art. It's an art. I admire those who can do it long term, because it's a funny business. I
can imagine. And you're a very idealistic person, and you seem to me to be the kind of person who needs to love what she does. And what I think can happen sometimes is you start out loving what you do, and over time, it kind of goes the other way,
You're singing my song,
right,
Tom. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I never stopped loving Health in a Hurry, but what was interesting is because most of my existence until recently was about being of service to others. I didn't hold making. It's crazy to admit this, but it's the God's honest truth that I didn't hold making money a priority for my business.
Right.
I finally have come to terms with the fact that it was a success, because it was a success. But I didn't make money, and I couldn't make a living on it. And I really was kind of a victim of my own circumstance, and just was going to, because, my confidence and my strength worked against me, because I was kind of bullying my way through, thinking everything was going to be fine, when really I wasn't happy. I wasn't healthy. I was actually doing all the things that I said earlier about what I was seeing in the political arena.
You fall into that, yeah.
All in the name of bettering the planet, and now my mantra is, gone 360. It's like, if I don't take care of myself, I can't give to anybody. And I know it's said over and over, except I can only talk about my own experience, that I had to learn. I don't want to say the hard way, but it wasn't fun times,
Now, you are a lifelong Connecticut person.
I am.
And yet, several years ago, you moved down to Florida, and we're certainly hearing a lot about Florida right now. And that was, as I recall, a weather-related change in your life.
That was
so what happened? We only have a couple of minutes left.
Superstorm Sandy blew me out of Fairfield, Connecticut. Based on what I just said, I remember it was actually the 8th anniversary of the opening of my storefront. Everything was canceled. Everything was closed. It was 48 hours before Hurricane Sandy was coming. And I just said to a friend on the phone, I'm closing Health in a Hurry. I was about to have the biggest week ever in Health in a Hurry's history, because it was October 28th, and that's a busy time of year, a lot of happenings. And I had a divine inspiration and just said, you know what, this is a sign. I didn't have enough energy to get through Hurricane Sandy, reopen, and fight the fight again.
Right.
So I ended up going, and I moved to Maine, and then on Craigslist I saw an ad, come cook in St. Croix in the Caribbean for the winter, and I said, okay. That was the ad. I ended up working on the Roseway and sailing down from Savannah to St. Croix and cooking on a 137-foot historic schooner. And then I hit the high seas for a little while. I actually had the good fortune of sailing from Mexico to El Salvador, down the coast of Mexico, El Salvador, Ecuador. I spent 5 months in Ecuador. And then my last boating thing was on a 137-foot mega yacht, which was three different, completely different experiences, cooking the whole time, and then landed in Fort Lauderdale and met the love of my life.
Okay.
And the rest is history. And now I may be having another blowout due to Hurricane Irma.
Okay, well, we're all thinking about people down there, certainly. And so now you met the love of your life, and he seems to have some connection with boats. And
He's a sailing captain.
He's a sailing captain.
He grew up on Long Island, spent his summers on the North Fork, and he also decided that he wanted to kind of do something different with his life. So he has been a captain for 30 years and sailed up and down the East Coast on his forte is historic schooners.
Okay.
Which is a kind of a dying art, because they're old and they're usually wooden, and there's not a lot of people there. There is a passing on to the younger generation, but he's kind of one of the last of the salty dogs.
Okay. Now, do you live on a boat? Or is that
No.
Okay.
No, but we do live directly on the Indian River Lagoon in Jensen Beach.
Okay.
And the truth is that I'm planning on being homeless again on Monday. I mean, I'm giggling because it's hard to absorb.
We don't know, and as your life is a testimony to this of living on faith, and it's amazing, and
landing on my feet, going by the seat of my
yes.
pants.
Well, you're certainly an inspirational person for all of us who get so hung up on our stuff. Now, do you and he own a boat? And
we just bought our first day sailor.
Okay.
And we talked about going and working back on boats again, but the truth is, at our age, it's really kind of an interesting. Your life is not your own when you work on a boat for someone, unless they are never present, and those jobs are rare to come by. So we have decided to stay land-based at this point, because he also, he was a sea gypsy,
Okay.
and you live a life where you just go from boat to boat for 30 years. It can be, it takes its toll.
But it's interesting because you seem to be cut from the same cloth.
Absolutely.
As far as that goes. So we only have less than a minute left. But so going forward, what do you see as far as what's next for Sue?
Well, Health in a Hurry is being reborn as we speak.
Okay.
When I closed Health in a Hurry, I wasn't sure what I was going to want to do, but I do part of the mission of Health in a Hurry was to be a model for the decentralization of our food system, and I got a little caught up in my sauce, but I am kind of re-energized full circle about that, because I am very concerned about the food system in our country, how fragile it is, how it is so centralized, and we're really not eating food. Most people in this country are not eating food. They're eating chemicals. Most of our diet is chemicals.
Well, Sue, thank you so much. And this has been a lot of fun, and good luck, and God bless with everything you do.
Find me on Facebook, Sue Cadwell, if you care about my mission.
Okay. You heard her. Okay.
Cadwell. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for letting me.